looking up and down the Esker lineup, you'll still see their staples such as the Esker Hayduke and Jaffe. However, what you won't see any longer are their carbon bikes, the LCAT, or any Orion suspension design bikes. Instead, well, they've been replaced by all-metal bikes built for the backcountry. That's their slogan, and while it may seem like a significant shift for Esker, really it's just them returning to their roots with less carbon and more metal. This shift includes the newly launched Smoky Hardtail and this thing right here, the Esker Lorax, their rendition of the drop bar mountain bike. But how does this bike stack up to the growing field of drop bar mountain bikes? Stay tuned to find out. All right, so I've been a dad of now 3 years, and I've read countless books, and almost all of them have a meaningful message. Something like, I don't know, being kind, sharing, or helping prepare a child for big feelings. While maybe a bit more complex, The Lorax, a Dr. Seuss book, is a children's book that tells a fable about the dangers of environmental destruction and corporate greed, emphasizing the importance of conservation and taking responsibility for protecting nature. It's a fitting name for a bike and continues Esker's trend of using characters from free-spirited or environmentally focused books to name their bikes, such as those from Edward Abbey and Jack Kerouac. The Lorax is, however, not a new bike. It originally debuted under the Advocate Cycles brand, a Tim Kruger brand, before transitioning fully to Esker Cycles. So the Lorax was launched originally in 2016 as a steel cross/gravel bike with 40mm tire clearance, and eventually Advocate Cycles was absorbed by Esker, and an updated Lorax was announced towards the end of 2022. This version had clearance for 700 by 50mm tires, but was only on the market for a year before Esker decided to reevaluate the model. The result, well, was this right here, a fully reimagined Lorax. While it still features a seamless butted and cold-shaped 3/2.5 titanium frame and drop bars, that's pretty much all it shares with the 2022 version. All right, so before we get any further, I just want to take a quick moment to let everybody know that this video is partially supported by Old Man Mountain. Dealing with a jostling or swaying load can be a real headache, but Old Man Mountain racks have you covered, keeping your gear snug and secure, allowing you to concentrate on the trail instead of consistently adjusting a wiggling load behind you. These racks are designed for both small and heavy loads, offering incredible versatility that fits nearly any bike thanks to their fit kits. So if you're in the search for a more secure storage option, Old Man Mountain has a solution for you. So check out the range of Old Man Mountain racks by clicking on the top right corner, or also follow the link in the description below. The new Lorax is designed to clear 29 by 2.2 to 2.6 inch tires, and while it was designed around a rigid fork, it does come with a 495mm axle to crown, so it also is corrected for a 120mm suspension fork. Like all Esker bikes, it comes with a portage dropout system and a UDH hanger. In this case, it comes fixed, but it is compatible with their adjustable UDH dropout if you do want to play around with chainstay length or single speed setups. The bike specs also kind of hit a sweet spot for me, featuring boost spacing, 73mm threaded bottom bracket, 31.8mm seat post diameter, all external routing except for a stealth dropper post. And while the bike does come with flat mount brakes, both the rear dropout and the lithic fork brake mounts can be replaced to accommodate post mount if you are looking for a more robust brake setup. All right, so I am 5'9.5", 155 pounds, 32-inch inseam with a plus 2.5-inch ape index. I ended up going with the medium, as I normally do. The medium comes with a 56cm effective top tube, 610mm stack, and a 380mm reach. A pretty typical stack to reach ratio on this style of bike. So while I never felt too upright, it was certainly more upright than, say, your standard gravel bike. I am pretty happy though with the medium, as I never felt like the bike was too small for me, especially paired with these 48cm drops that came with the bike. That all said, the large is certainly not out of the question after looking at the geo chart. However, I do think that it might take away from that quickness that I definitely will touch on later in this review. So as far as geometry is concerned, well, there's really not too much that stands out on the Lorax, as this bike certainly falls in line with many other drop bar mountain bikes, featuring a 445mm chainstay, 73.5-degree seat tube angle, and a 68-degree head tube angle. It may be, I don't know, a little bit more aggressive, but with an overall wheelbase of 1,094 millimeters on the medium size, it's not the longest, just looking at this chart of comparable bikes. So the 649mm front center certainly gives the front end sufficient space to tackle obstacles and feel confident on high-speed single track or dirt roads. It's not as inspiring as the Otso Fenrir, but that bike was certainly designed a little bit more deliberately for flat bars, so take that with a grain of salt. All right, so the bike comes equipped with a lithic mountain fork with both 51.5mm and 44mm offset options. I tested both, but my preference and the way the bike arrived to me was in that 44mm offset position, and this paired with the overall geometry provided really great stability at high speeds and very responsive steering at low speeds. While it was a little twitchy in that 51.5mm position, I wouldn't describe the 44mm position as twitchy at all. All told, the bike comes in at 102mm of trail in that 44mm position. That is technically the most trail that I've tested on a drop bar mountain bike. That said, the Pipe Dream Alice, or ALICE, comes with a 98mm trail, yet based on the wheel flop that I felt on that bike, I think that head tube angle actually was slacker than their claimed 69 degrees. In any event, trail, or the trail measurement, is the horizontal distance between the point where the front wheel touches the ground and the point where an imaginary line drawn through the steering axis intersects the ground. Coincidentally, these styles of bikes with more trail have been my favorite, including that Alice and the Otso Fenrir. And despite the high trail on the Lorax, it felt certainly more balanced than both of those bikes. All right, so the Lorax comes in two forms. You have titanium and steel. And while Logan tested the steel version, I had the pleasure of testing this titanium version. And although there are no geometry differences between the two, steel and titanium are two distinct materials. Logan mentions that he felt that the ride quality of the steel version was quite average. I didn't think that, however, with this titanium version. The oversized titanium tube set offers a rather stiff ride overall, and the tubes are custom shaped to enhance compliance and stiffness in specific areas, such as the ovalized shape near the down tube bottom bracket junction and the top tube seat tube area. So this, paired with these oversized tubes, creates one of the snappier titanium bikes that I've pedaled. Additionally, it's worth noting that the medium frame has the top tube and down tube junction welded right here together, whereas say that large and extra large frames do not. It's also worth mentioning that the steel version is entirely separated right there. So I personally appreciated the stiffness. I could feel that front end stiffness with that carbon fork and the welded junction near the head tube. And while I noticed it to be a little harsh on chunky descents, it offered much more life on climbs, making me feel like all of my power was being transferred into the frame. It offers a similar feel to that of the Salsa Cutthroat, where that carbon does a really good job of channeling power back into the frame and eventually into forward motion. In contrast, I think what Logan is feeling with the steel version with its smaller tube set does not offer that same level of stiffness. All right, so all told, I mean, it's kind of an overbuilt frame. It's got these chunky tubes, so it's not the lightest bike out there. The titanium frame comes in at a claimed weight of 2,236 grams or 4.9 pounds for the medium without a fork, and the full build comes in at 24 pounds, 7 ounces with a bunch of grit and grime on it. All right, so aside from the geometry and material, or rather maybe because of the geometry and material, this bike is a true blast to pedal. So I found myself riding it on rough trails and roads rather than just your standard gravel roads. After all, it is a drop bar mountain bike. The bike was snappy on accelerations, agile in handling, and inspiring in descending quality. In fact, during my first few rides, I set some personal records on some climbs and routes, even achieving a few top 10s on rides where I usually bring my mountain bike. Although I certainly wasn't as fast on the descents. It demonstrated that, well, the bike can really handle relatively easy single track climbs with urgency and is in general really quick. When the grades got even steeper, the bike balanced really well, keeping my butt kind of positioned really nicely on the saddle. The front wheel remained very planted while I was still able to put some pretty good power into my pedal stroke. All right, so the bike also has a very playful quality to it. A smaller bike in general offers this as opposed to something with, say, a super long reach and front center. But I found myself quickly turning the bike from side to side, skidding, jumping, and just having a super fun time on it. But when I got going fast, I've really appreciated the balance between that high trail and the stack when I was in the drops. I felt like I could really lean into the turns and felt very confident at high speeds. The long trail on this bike and that of, say, the Pipe Dream Alice really offer an inspiring ride. And now that I'm kind of used to riding bikes with more trail, I find that, well, the adjustment is a non-issue. However, some folks certainly, well, you probably need to adjust to that feeling. It is a little awkward at first. So by the end of my test period, I felt so confident on this bike as far as descending capabilities. I was tackling iconic trails in Crested Butte and some local single track, and I got so confident that I nearly crashed a few times and had to kind of reel it back, reminding myself I was, well, on a drop bar mountain bike. That said, it is so much more capable than it looks. All right, so if you were to ask me what I would change on the bike, well, I don't think it would be all that much. I really don't want to take away this really well-balanced feel, but I might try and reduce that chainstay length by, I don't know, 5 millimeters, maybe add that up front. And I certainly would add a chainstay protector. The chain hits the stay on even moderate bumps, and it is really loud and annoying. Like any drop bar mountain bike, most of them, if not all of them, are built for bike packing. And the Lorax excels in this regard with 22 mounts. The rear end comes with both rack and fender mounts and top tube mounts for direct mount top tube bags, and a set of 3-pack mounts on either side of the down tube, and you got a water bottle cage mount right here on the seat tube. So as far as packing my bike, the rear rack was a really great option, and I even mounted some panniers on the side, something that I certainly normally don't do, but it ended up working out really well. So Rockgeist also sent a really nice full frame bag that fit like a glove, but the frame itself is undoubtedly smaller than many others in this category, so you only have little space to put things inside the frame, which is slightly disappointing, especially for small and medium frames. Also, while I certainly prefer external routing, installing the direct mount frame bag was really annoying, as I had to also reinstall the cable guides at the same time. Up front, I was able to pack plenty between these 48-centimeter drop bars, and the fork came with 3-pack mounts, so I could easily utilize those for water storage, or if you wanted to put cargo up there, you can do that. Once it was loaded down, surprisingly, it was not too dissimilar to it being unloaded. It offered quick acceleration and inspiring descending, all with a slightly added comfort value. However, it certainly was stiffer than most other titanium bikes that I've tested loaded, even with more weight on it than my normal bike packing loads. So while you can pick a few custom specs on their website, I more or less got their stock titanium build. For starters, Esker spec'd it with the new Shimano GRX 12-speed levers up here and derailleur with GRX flat mount brakes and an XT crank and SLX cassette. The bike comes stock with a 38-tooth wolf tooth front chainring, and the bike has clearance for 40-tooth or a 38-tooth oval. This whole setup certainly offered a reliable 1x12 shifting experience with solid gear range. However, some might certainly want a smaller front chainring. You can certainly do that. But for me, it was perfect for all the varied terrain that I found myself on. So I certainly could have used a little bit more power from the brakes on some fast descent. So maybe an upgrade to a more powerful flat mount caliper or a swap to a post mount caliper that is compatible with GRX levers would be ideal. While the right lever does all the shifting, the left one actuates the 120mm dropper post, which I found to be a game changer for this style of bike. It really just lets you shift your weight around and simply feel much more confident on the bike. So one of the upgrades that Esker ended up sending me was these wheel sets. This is the Industry 9 1x1 Enduro S alloy wheels. Mounted to these wheels were some Maxxis Icon 2.2-inch tires. It's a great fast rolling tire that hooks up when you need it and really really, it's just a great complement to this style of bike. And just looking down at the clearance down here, certainly have room for 2.4 and 2.6 inch tires. But if I was to say race the Tour Divide or some race like that, I'd probably stick with this exact setup. So as I mentioned, the lithic fork saw a lot of abuse and worked really great and has clearance for up to 3-inch rubber. And it's super easy to adjust the offset position without actually having to readjust the caliper, which is really amazing. All right, so who is the Esker Lorax for? Well, if you're like me and enjoy going fast, especially while pedaling, well, it just might be for you. It clearly prioritizes efficiency without much penalty on the way down thanks to their high trail. And thanks to the titanium tube set construction, it's nimble, playful, and stiff, more stiff than I'd expect from a titanium bike. Would I ride this on a race like the Tour Divide? Absolutely. But really more so for me, I was just motivated to get out and ride on this thing. The Lorax can blend two distinctly different rides together, helping open a world of possibilities from dirt roads to single track trails. While it certainly has a relatively tiny frame storage here, it has mounts for days and handles a bike packing load very well. All told, this is one of the more fine-tuned drop bar mountain bikes that I've tested. So it is a titanium frame, and I think that's exactly what sets this bike apart from some others that I've tested. The frame set starts at $3,100 USD, and the full build starts at $4,500 USD. This is certainly in line with the Salsa Tie Fargo, cheaper than the Otto Fenrir tie, and a little bit more expensive than that Tumbleweed Stargazer tie, which does come with that steel fork. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and if you like what you saw in this video and want to see more like it, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to help support this YouTube channel, BIKEPACKING.com as a whole, you can do so by joining the Bikepacking Collective. The Collective offers a lot of awesome perks, including industry discounts, monthly giveaways, and the twice yearly Bikepacking Journal. So to learn a little bit more about the Bikepacking Collective, you can click on the card in the top right corner or also follow the link in the description below. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, pedal further.